This game is hard, man. Hi everybody, I'm back. Today I'm going back, way back to the golden age of the American arcade, 1983. However, video games have an origin much older than that. It all started back in the late 1940s with the invention of the cathode ray tube screen, CRT for short. When early programmers first caught wind of this, they began creating video games for them. This was the first time these kind of games could be shown on a proper monitor. These games didn't do much more than a simple match of tic-tac-toe or checkers in a style reminiscent of the Whopper from war games. All vector graphics, but no matter how simplistic, these were the first video games. However, it didn't get really exciting till the 50s with a little game called Tennis for Two. Also played on a CRT, Tennis for Two was basically the earliest form of what would later become Pong. The game featured a horizontal line representing the tennis court and a vertical line in the middle representing the tennis net. Whenever a player would hit the ball into the net, serve would continue to the opposite player, and, well, it's tennis, but it's still way cool for 1958. Later would come Space War by Steve Russell, in the early 60s Computer Space and more variations of the same concepts. Then along came Pong, which started a craze in the 70s and 80s for video arcade games, influencing pop culture, movies, TV shows like Starcade, and countless games over the following decades. Most people know the deets, and that's what this GameDen mini-series, Video Fever, is all about, the arcade games of the early 1980s. First up is an awe-inspiring, revolutionary game called Dragon's Lair.
Dragon's Lair, the fantasy adventure where you become a valiant knight on a quest to rescue the fair princess from the clutches of an evil dragon.
Released by the Bluth Group, headed by Don Bluth, and released by Cinematronics into arcades back in 1983, it gained recognition because of its unique gameplay and art style. It's not hard to imagine arcades in the early 80s full of games like Donkey Kong, Pac-Man, Space Invaders, and then Dragon's Lair comes along and changes the whole friggin' game! It was crazy!
Reach the Dragon's Lair. Lead on, adventurer. Your quest awaits.
It stars Dirk the Daring, a reluctant knight who has to save Princess Daphne from the evil clutches of Singe, the evil dragon, in a lair in a huge looming castle owned by the evil wizard Mordroc, full of monsters and insane obstacles. No wonder it was so successful. Look at the graphics! It was like a game movie, or movie game. What a game changer! Full motion interactive video. And we're not talking Sega CD full motion, real movie quality. And here's how it worked. Dragon's Lair played off of a laserdisc inside of a game cabinet. On the laserdisc was several animated actions that you could make Dirk do. When you started the game and you entered the castle, it would throw you into a random level by selecting a segment on the disc. Then you would have to use the joystick and sword button in accordance with the on-screen obstacles to advance through the castle. Along the way you fight several funny characters, and you have to survive weird rooms like this one. It looks like Marble Madness. After all of that, you have to fight Singe and save Daphne. Huh, who names a princess Daphne? No worse than Toadstool, I guess. The game was animated in part by Don Bluth, a man who worked for Disney during the 60s and 70s. He made films including Pete's Dragon, The Secret of Nim, and he even worked on Sleeping Beauty, Robin Hood, The Rescuers, and The Sword and the Stone! This guy's a national treasure! He later left Disney and started his own company called Don Bluth Productions, a predecessor to the Bluth Group, which created Dragon's Lair, Space Ace, a sequel to Space Ace, and even a Dragon's Lair sequel that, unfortunately, had a poorly received release and was rarely seen in arcades. For the record, I think Dragon's Lair is freaking awesome. I've beaten the game myself, but I've only been able to play it on the actual arcade cabinet twice. I got my ass handed to me, both times, but it was amazing. I'll have to review this one in more depth at another time, but for now, let's move on to the next game. If you saw the end of the second episode of this series, you could probably guess I'm a big fan of Tapper. So our second game today is that game. Tapper was released by Bally Midway, the same company known for Burger Time, Rampage, and Spy Hunter. It was originally covered in ads for Budweiser and even played the Budweiser beer theme. Overseas, it advertised a Japanese beer company called Suntory, but after publicity issues, they changed both versions to Root Beer Tapper. In the game, you play as a bartender who moves at light speed to get drinks to his customers. There's cowboys, athletes, punk rockers, and even aliens in 4 different designed bars all spread across 13 levels. You have to serve them all and catch their mugs before they fall. If you do a good job, you'll even get a tip. However, if you take too long to serve anyone, they'll throw you out. Ungrateful drunkards. What's that you say? 13 levels isn't that long? Well, you're right. If you're an experienced player, you could beat the game in a few minutes easy. But after the last level, the game loops. So your real goal is to rack up as many points as you can before the inevitable game over and enter your initials. While you play, there's several people who show up. In the first level, you only serve about 4 people if you're quick. The second is about 8, and the third level has 12 people who want beer. Then there's more, and more, and more, and more, and more! They just keep coming! This has to be a record for how many people have been in a bar at once. Sometimes they even come back in. Man alive! Or man dead. Dead drunk. Regardless of how hard it is, I love this game, and I'm sure you will too. Now, I've never seen the cabinet in person, but for what images that I've seen, it looks like it's made out of a material that imitates a wooden look. It has a marquee that looks like a bar sign, and a straight-up tap lever in the thing. That's awesome! Ladies and gentlemen, it's time once again for the GameDen's favorite pastime. Rate that game! This time we're taking a look at Galaxian. Galaxian was developed by Namco, and was released December 1979 by Midway. Made to compete with Space Invaders, I find it funny that Midway released both games, including its sequel, Galaga, in 1981. However, while Galaxian shares a lot of similarities with Space Invaders, it took a step further and made the alien ships turn kamikaze and dive bomb at you, unlike in Space Invaders, where they just inch closer to you. You control the Galaxian, a spaceship from Galaxian Earth. Your job is to destroy several alien swarms while trying to stay alive and conserve your ammo. When you hit a ship, your ammo restocks automatically. The game doesn't really use levels so much as waves. There's 32 waves in Galaxian, each one containing 42 enemy ships you have to destroy. Now, I'm sure most people have played Galaga, which is great, and Galaxian is too, so I'm giving it 3.5 Galaxips out of 5. This is a game that I know you'll like. My rating of it would probably be higher, but in order to properly judge a game, I need to be able to actually play it, and I'm afraid I'm not very good at it. Next time I'll review Galaga. I have way more games that I want to talk about, but that's all for this time. I'll see you all next time on the GameDen. Get out of here, the episode's over. What the hell? Take cover!